Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, we're going to be looking at Manjaro 19.0 right after this. So since I can only pick one of the distributions to install, since I have been doing a lot of KDE on the distributions that I've been reviewing, I thought, well, I better stay with KDE. There are a number of them that you can choose from, and we'll talk about those. But you do have to pick which desktop environment you want to run when you download the runtime for the ISOs. That is the live CD for the ISOs. And so that's what we're going to be doing today, is we're going to be looking at 19.0.1 to be exact. So what is Arch? Arch is a open source Linux distribution which is based on Arch Linux. I always love these marketing terms. It focuses on user friendliness and on accessibility. So, I mean, everybody has, those are such nebulous terms that mean absolutely nothing. But the intent is to make a distribution which is easy for the user to understand, to get it installed, and then be able to use it on a day-to-day basis. Keep it updated, keep it secure, those types of things. Accessibility generally refers to being able to address particular physical issues such as sight or hearing, and be able to address those within the distribution. So I'm not sure what they're meaning by accessibility here, but I mean, that to me is what that means. But I don't know what Manjaro means by it. Manjaro is a rolling release. However, they do use a long-term support model for the kernel. So yeah, it's a release. It's a rolling release, except I don't know how much they really roll the kernel, since they're tied to an LTS version. I would think they would only be doing security patches within that particular version, that major version and minor version. So the question is Manjaro a good distribution for someone who's new to Linux to use? And that's one of the questions we're going to attempt to answer today. I mean, I'm sure they feel that it is, but let's take a look and see whether or not we think it is. Offers a variety of pre-installed software. There is quite a few packages that you can install with it, in addition to the ones that are pre-installed as well. So Manjaro was initially released in July of 2010, and I think the first release version of Manjaro was 0.8. And I remember way back then when I think it was a Netrunner that was a way of an installation mechanism for Linux on some of the distributions that use that particular method. That, of course, isn't used anymore today, but that, I think Netrunner was the reason for generating Manjaro and to create its own release from that. Out of Arch. The latest release, of course, is 19.0, which is the one we're going to talk about. That was released not too long ago, February the 25th, 2020. So, yeah, 5 days ago, or something like that. So the platforms supported are, there is a i686 that's unofficial, and there is an x86 64-bit, which is official, and there is an ARM. Now, I have this listed as ARM64 because they do say it's a 64-bit release, so I'm assuming it's ARM64. However, I do know that there is a Manjaro version for the Raspberry Pi, and of course, that's going to be 32-bit, and that also is unofficial. You have your choice when you download the initial ISO from their site from the official supported ones, which is XFCE, KDE, and that's Plasma 5, and GNOME, and then also one they call Architect. And Architect is quite different. So if you think that's a GUI, well, yeah, it is and it isn't. Yeah, so it depends on which, and we'll talk about that. So there's a download, which you can choose which one of those you want to use as a download. There are some community editions of Manjaro that support Awesome, Budgie, Cinnamon, i3, LXDE, LXQT, Mate, and OpenBox. So yeah, you have quite a variety of selections. It depends upon which ones you want to go with. Now the community editions, I can't speak for how well they're tested, but I suppose if you get on the forums for Manjaro, you can probably find out how many questions are being generated and how many issues are being generated that people are seeing. I claim it's a rolling release, but that's for the packages. It is, but the major releases of Manjaro come. Time frames are always iffy in Linux. About once a year, sort of, kind of, somewhere in there. There's some that have like 16. That took a while. It took a little longer than a year to get out. But yeah, on the whole. Yeah, it's about once a year. So, like I said, it uses the version 5.4 long-term support version of the Linux kernel from the Linux Foundation. And I would imagine, like I said, I think they only do. I would imagine they only do security updates. But I'll play with this for a while, and maybe I'll get back to you and tell you what it actually does. Manjaro is based on Arch Linux, as we said, but it uses its own set of repositories. It does support using the Arch repositories as well as the Arch user repositories, the AUR, and you can use those if you want. The Manjaro, however, their repositories typically lag behind Arch Linux stable by a few weeks, and I think that's because they do some curation, some testing to make sure that it's not going to crash when it gets installed in your system. And that's not to say that the Arch folks don't do testing, but I think because Manjaro doesn't change the kernel, I think they have to do some extra testing to make sure that that's going to work. So I'm not saying that Arch doesn't test; they certainly do. Opinion about the lag. Even though there is some lag between Arch and Manjaro, a lot of people still consider Manjaro a cutting-edge release, and I'll bet the Arch people are probably laughing. But Arch is really considered, especially using the unstable release, a bleeding edge of Linux. So if you want to hang out with the very latest stuff that's coming, Arch Unstable might be for you. But if you're in the stable releases and you need the patches that are coming from Arch sooner, then you probably don't want to mess with Manjaro. You probably want to go with one of the Arch distributions that's closer to the base release. But that's not to say anything bad about Manjaro. That's just the way they do things, which is, I don't have a problem with that. The Manjaro architect, however, is really meant to set up and configure Manjaro in every single detail. So if you're going down this route, you're going to be doing a lot of configuration by hand, because things like if you were to install KDE, for example, it comes unconfigured. So you're going to have to get in there and configure it the way that you want it in order for it to work. So don't plan on a 20-minute install doing Manjaro that way. Manjaro Architect is a fork of Carl Duff's Architect Linux, and I know that. I don't know. I don't know if that was a netrunner. I'm not going to claim that it is. I don't know, but it does download the very latest packages that are available, and I don't know if that's in the testing branch of Arch or whether that's in the stable branch of Arch. I don't know. I guess maybe we'll find that out today when we're going through this. Maybe I'll go over to the site and we'll see if we can figure that out. But it does claim to offer total customization of your installation, which if you really want to get down into the depths of Linux, but you don't want to jump all the way to Arch, then maybe Manjaro might give you a head start, might give you some ways to get started. But if you really want to understand everything under the cover, then yeah, go over to Arch, and you will definitely be setting up everything yourself. And some users like to do that, and some users don't. It depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to learn. So is I keep saying Arch. Is Manjaro Architect something I would recommend for new users? No. No, I wouldn't. I think you would quickly get frustrated. So no, I wouldn't. I would, like I always say, if you're going to run Manjaro, pick one of the releases that are stable, have the GUI that you want, that you like, and play with that for a year and get under the covers and play with stuff a little bit and figure out how things are kind of hooked together and how they work before you attempt something like that. So, you really need to get your wheels under you. I've said that before. You need to get your wheels over before you can start running. And that's always been the case. If you start out and you don't understand Linux to begin with, being frustrated is not a good way to learn it. So let's go back over to the full screen again. And I'm going to try this on boxes. I don't know if this will work. I see I do have a crashed installation here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. We'll try it again and see if it will work. Since people are watching, usually it doesn't, but, you know, hey, you never know. It might. It might. I am going to customize this a little bit. I don't like running GUIs in 2 gig. That's just pushing it. You're just, you know, you're not leaving much headroom for anything. 21.5 gig is probably fine. It takes, I know that it takes about 8 gig by the time it's installed, but you got to remember you're doing a lot of package management while you're doing the install. Plus, you may decide that you want to start using this and bring down some extra stuff. So, yes, you can expand virtual machines, the storage areas for the virtual storage areas for it, but it's a pain in the butt. Get it right first. So, anyway, let's see what happens here. Let's see if we get up to the install. So at this page, this is like a menu where you can do some settings. I can set my drivers to free or non-free. I'm going to leave it at free. I can set my language to any of those countries if I prefer. I don't. And then, of course, I can choose a keyboard that's suitable for the country I live in. Also, you can set your time zone if you wish. I'm going to leave it at UTC. That's fine. I can change that during the install. And then I don't know what that is. Oh, okay. I guess it takes XIR. Oh, I see. Start over. I think that's an option. So let's do that again. Let me get my cursor back here. There we go. And then we'll just do an Alt-Control-Delete. And we'll start this up again. All right, no fooling around. We'll just go into it this time. You didn't see that. You didn't see that. Yeah, you did. You did see it. I don't mind you guys seeing my mistakes because you're going to make them too. So yeah, it's probably setting options. The clue was that it put it on that line. It was like, I bet that's an option that goes into the boot. Which it probably would get real confused if it didn't understand what it was. Okay, so after it's figured out the size of my display, it'll present you with this little menu here that you can then go in and read about. Manjaro. You can read about this particular release. This is called Kyra, and we could read more about it if we want. Kyra is a star, by the way, and yeah, we could do that. You can go to the wiki and read more about it. If you're running into trouble, you can go to the forums or the chat room or the mailing list if you want to report a bug, I suppose. And if you're interested in getting involved or donating to the project, you can do that. And it's not a bad idea to donate to the project if it's something that you're going to use, because that helps them keep the developers going and on staff and get stuff running. So I chose the installer there, launch installer, which is right there at the bottom. It's also right here. And and I noticed there's also a nice little user guide here. Let's take a look at that before we go on. I always like to see this because, you know, it shows that they've put time and effort, and they've got quite a few pages here. So getting, installing, welcome. So they have some basics with the setup and the install and booting. And this, to me, shows that they've taken the effort to go through and actually try to explain things to you. And I've always liked that. Whenever I see that in a distribution, that's a plus. Yeah, I picked up my time zone correctly. Keyboard is correct. And, yeah, we'll be purging the disk. Do I want swap? Well, I'm not going to hibernate. Not a VM, but I do like to have that security blanket underneath. It's an old habit of working with low memory machines. I never like to run without swap. In the old days, if you ran out of swap, Your machine just crashed. So the kernel will usually just give up. And I believe some of the modern kernels today do have the option to just chuck apps out of memory. I don't think that's a good thing either, but it is better than a whole system crash. So let's see. Let's call this man one. Well, let's not do that. Let's call it Manjaro. And I'll do my password. Now, this one here, I don't want a separate account. Now, if I was doing this on a real machine, I would give root a separate account if I needed that. But typically, I disable root. So, and then after that, it gives you a choice between what Office packages or Office suites you want. And they offer LibreOffice and FreeOffice. And then I've heard, I have no experience with FreeOffice, I've heard it's faster. I don't know how much. I don't know what that means. When people say it's faster, I don't know if it's measured performance or whether they just think it's faster. But I do know that at one time, I think FreeOffice was trying to go to a model where that you paid for it, and that upset a lot of people. So I prefer to stay with LibreOffice. It's what I use. It's what I'm familiar with. But if FreeOffice is something that you like better, then you can choose it there. And if you don't like either one of those, you can always choose, I don't want either. So it's going to tell me this is all the stuff it's going to do, and there's probably more here. It's setting up my partitions in this manner. And again, if I was doing this on a piece of real hardware and not a VM, I would go in and set up separate partitions for home, temp, and bar. So it's 12:48, and I just got started, and I will come back when it's done, and we'll find out how long this actually took. Okay, so that took about, let's see, 12:51. So it's at 12:48, so maybe 4 minutes, somewhere around in there. Not too bad, not too bad. So we'll go ahead and tell it to restart now, and we'll press done. And the system instantly shuts down. The last time I did this, it crashed Boxes, but Boxes has been doing that on everything, not just Manjaro. So I have to wait a minute. The KDE is a little slow to start. I think it's doing either some background configuration or setup before it actually boots the GUI. So there's it's there. So it does take a little bit of time to come up the first time. And again, like always, you notice I didn't have to remove any media to do this. Now, it's always usually a good idea to do that, but because in the VM you have a boot order, and again, it took a while to set up the desktop, and it has found a wired connection, which is good. Same documentation set as before, and then if you don't want this anymore, you can just click this off, and this won't appear anymore. But if you need this help, or you want to keep this help around, you can still get to it from the menu. So this is KDE. I always like to see what options you have for the desktop. Let's see. I assume configure the desktop is where you would go. Yep. So we have some of the older we have some older KDE background art, and we also have some older Manjaro. Yeah, this one I remember seeing in the KDE release. So let's take that one. I mean, I like what they have there, but I always like to customize my own as well. So let's see what we got here. First thing is terminal, and I'm going to add that to the task manager. And there is a drop-down terminal window that you can use as well if you want. Let's see. Let me get this out here, and then I'll make this a little bigger so that you can see it with me. Oops. There we go. I want appearance probably. And I'll make this about 14. That should be big enough. And I have to do this usual dance with console to get it to actually give me 80 by 24. Okay, so it is 5422, and obviously this is the x86 version. If you want the full uname, you can do that. It tells you when it was compiled on the 24th. So this has not been updated since the release. To update, oops, let's put the sudo in front of it because it's going to complain if I don't. I'm going to check for updates. I'm doing this from the command line. I just always do. I don't know why. It'll also tell you if there are updates, and I think it's saying that right there. Yeah, it's telling me that there's updates. So I could apply them here if I want to, but I don't. I'm just going to do it from Pacman. Yeah. If I'm doing a rolling release, I usually like to use the command line utility. And yeah, GUIs are great until they aren't. So that didn't take a whole lot of time. It's not telling me usually it tells you need to reboot. Well, let's see if it says that. And so there's all the stuff that's installed, along with all the stuff that I can install. So yeah, you might as well start here. VLC is coming with it. Blender, Inkscape, all the typical. No. No. Just say no to Oracle VM. Let's see. Maybe one day they'll fix that and get it to actually perform well. The 73.1. So I won't have to go look at that. It tells me if I want utilities, what ones do I have? I've got all kinds of stuff that installed. Sometimes if you bring in things like this, you're going to bring in the entire desktop environment. So just be aware of that. That's usually not a good thing to do. But since if you want more information about Pacman, you can just do a man on it, and it'll tell you the operation. So I can do a search, which is a query. I can remove packages, -R. I can sync packages. So this would be when I want to update them. And there should be an upgrade. I think S is also used for install, if I remember my Pacman commands. Let's see what we got first. So we have HTOP, and wow, let me turn this off because who knows how much memory this is using. Oh yeah, that dropped quite a ways, about 50 meg, about 60 meg actually. So 747 meg for KDE, really? What the heck are you guys running? So that's a little heavier than what I'm used to with KDE. Normally it's about 100 meg less, sometimes 150, depends on the kernel and also the drivers that are installed. So I won't be mean. Let's see. I'll bet that's not installed. Nope. And I'll bet that's not installed. Nope. So spell it right. So we'll go get those and all their supporting packages. And let's see. Command not found. Did it just skip it? Oh, I did HTOP. What a moron. All right, so let's do this again. You know how you tell a programmer? They talk to themselves. That's right. All right, so, okay, so it knows I'm running under KVM, which is good, and it knows I'm on 5.0, which is a pretty current version of Bash. I don't know what else to infer from that. Let's look at glances and see what it thinks memory is being used. Yeah, a gig, almost a gig. Whew. Wow, that is heavy. That is really heavy. Surely all this stuff down here wouldn't be all that, would it? It could be. All this stuff here is just going to take memory away. So yeah, it could be where most of it's coming. So let's see. What else can we do? Well, we can go into Dolphin. We'll do my favorite thing. We'll add a network folder. And I'm going to use secured shell. And we'll call this IO. Let's call it IO Media. Yeah, that's good, that's good. I'm going to pull this off the ZFS pool. And it should pop. Yeah, I know. Asking me for the password. There we go. So now, one thing that's nice about you notice I didn't have to set up an NFS share. I didn't have to set up a SAM share. Try that, Windows. Let's see you do that, Windows. Yeah, I know you could go. Yeah, I know you can do it too. But I just like the way this works. So. I can't do anything. I'll get in trouble for a lot of these things because they're copyrighted. So, but I think I can go in here. This is one of the older microphones. Oop. My big complaint with KDE. This is an old microphone, an old Marshall, giving the specs on it. So I know I can't get in trouble for this because it's publicly downloadable and it's not copyrighted. So yeah, this is an old MXL 4000. One of the earliest microphones I ever bought, not for YouTube, but for something else. Still have it. Don't use it. It's a good one. It's cheap. But anyway. Yeah, it seems to work just fine. Oh, wait, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it that way. Okay. So the nice thing about this, and of course, oops, let's get on the right system. And the nice thing about this is if I go back in here again, it's already set up for me. So I don't have to go back in there and do that again. So yeah, if you're doing stuff like that, you can do that. As far as disk space, 7.9 gigs. I didn't lie. It's about 8 gig, and that's a little heavier. Most of the distros I've been looking at recently have been around 6, and yeah, so yeah, it's a little heavier than normal. As far as, and we already know this is 73.0.1 for Firefox. Let's just go look and see all this stuff. And you know, KDE is nice, but I would turn this off. I hate this. I don't like that. I just want to see all the apps. I don't care about the organization. To me, that's just nonsense. All right, so. I have an archiving tool. I have Kate, yeah. K-Find, that's okay. And there's the user guide. Okay, let's go back up here. Let's see, Office, we already know that it's installed it installed the full one. Even the database is here. Is draws probably under graphics. Nope, it's right there. Okay, good. It's all lumped together. Some distros like to separate that over here into graphics, and we just have the basic ones here. So and it also listed here as well. Interesting. Okay, nice job. Mathematics and science. Formula editor. Formula editor, same thing. Okay. So it's good, I guess, that, let's see, development, debugger, interface designer, Qt documentation course. I did this one already. Let's go to system. So the graphical one we were already in. Oh, PAMAC. Okay. Yeah. I know I've heard some of the Arch guys talking about this. Some like it, some don't. So just be advised that if you're in doubt, go down here to use the to update. So I think I don't know what else to tell you about this. I mean, it has all the same commands. It's ID. There's the network. I mean, it does everything that a normal Linux distribution should do, but you don't have to spend a lot of time setting this one up. So, but if you do want to do that, you can do that with Arch or with the architect. Yeah, knock yourself out. If you guys like to hand load systems, go right ahead. I've done all that in my lifetime from about 1980 until about 1986. Hand loading operating systems by flipping bits in the registers on the front of the machines just to get it to bootload. Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that back then too. But knock yourself out. If that's what you really like to do. I'm done with it. I'm past that. But hey, if you like doing that sort of thing, great. Good on you. So let's talk a little bit about what we think about this installation a little bit. And I'm going to shut down this distro. Get the memory back. Yep, go away. Thank you. Okay, so some of my thoughts. I find the installer a bit slow, and I mean not in its installation time, but in just its reaction from moving from one screen to the next. I find that just a little on the sluggish side. Otherwise, it seems to. Did I have any problems? Did it blow up? No. And boxes didn't even blow up this time because you were watching. That's why. So usually Murphy says that if you're watching, it blows up. But in my case, it's always been the opposite. So it's when I'm doing it, it blows up. But when you see it, it doesn't. The boot time for KDE is slower than I'm used to. And of course, if you go back to Neon and look how fast that one comes up, it's extremely quick. And it was using the same machine, same architecture, same boxes. The package manager is good, but I recommend you go to the command line. I mean, that's just a personal preference for me. I know there's been problems with some of the GUI front ends. Now, I'm not saying that the one that Manjaro uses is bad. I'm not saying that at all, but I know there have been problems in the past with those. So just be aware of that. So yeah, you can get yourself in trouble even on the command line. So anytime you're in a rolling release situation, it is possible you can have a system that doesn't boot. So if you are using this under a virtual machine snapshot before you update, that's always a good way to roll back. If you're on a real machine, you're kind of stuck because there aren't any good ways to snapshot other than to back up before you do an update. So it seems to run great once it's installed. I mean, it's very responsive and very quick. I found that once you're inside of it and once it figures out what display it's running, it pops right along. I don't have any problem with it at all. I did not check Wi-Fi connectivity or Bluetooth because obviously it's under those things would have to be passed through. And Boxes doesn't like to do that. So in order to do that, I would have to bring this up under Virt Manager and install it that way. And then try it pass through the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth. But unfortunately, this machine doesn't have Bluetooth. So it also has a disabled Wi-Fi card. So I won't be doing it on this machine. Memory is higher in the last time that I did this. The first time I did this, memory use was about the same as most KDE. It was down around 650 or so. So I'm not sure what happened this time. I don't remember changing any options that I installed. But it was higher. Maybe there was some background tasks that we're finishing up this time. But I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Memory use is about the same. The disk usage is higher than most distributions that run KDE and that I've tested recently. And you can go back to those videos and you can see that they're mostly around 6 gig. This is taking about 2 gig more. To me, that's pretty significant. Other than that, I can tell you personally, I have not had a whole lot of luck with Manjaro running long term. But that's my screwy way of running stuff and installing stuff and deinstalling stuff. I've gotten to the point now where I just use Docker. I do my work inside of Docker, and that's all I really need. As far as Manjaro is concerned, do I recommend this for a new user? If you're in a rolling release situation, you can try it. If you really like this interface and you really like the idea of having the most current software, you could try it. But my experience with Manjaro is that it is very easy to break. And that's true also of any rolling release that I've ever used. It's very easy to break them. Because if you are starting to install libraries from different places that are using different versions of particularly Dynalabs, then yeah, you can easily get yourself wrapped around the axle, and you can get it. Don't get me wrong. Even if it's a controlled release, yes, you can wrap yourself around the axle there too, but it takes longer. The ones that are rolling releases that are coming out every week, like Manjaro would be, yeah, you're going to wrap around your axle a lot faster than you would on the other stable releases. So would I recommend this for a new user? If you're someone that doesn't mind going in and having to undo a partial install or a bad install of a library, yes, it's for you. If you're a user that just doesn't want to bother with that, no, I wouldn't recommend starting with Manjaro. Go back to Pop OS, or go back to Linux Mint, or go to MX19. Those are really good systems for new users. Peppermint is too. Peppermint is in a bit of a turmoil right now because their leader has recently passed away, and they are searching for a new one. I think Peppermint will be fine. And I don't hesitate to recommend that one either. So, would I start with Manjaro? I can't really say yes. I can't. I mean, I wouldn't do that to a new person. I just don't want to frustrate people. So, yeah. If you get some time under your belt and you really figure out what's going on with Linux, go by all means. You might even want to go try Architect as well. So that's all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe as always, and I hope to see you again in the next one. And bye for now.